Joel Wen again. More songs of a true-eyed brother. Last time we talked, or we ended up talking about thinking and the idea that it might have something potential in it that's transcendent. But because of what I said when I started out this particular set of talks on what we need to call the other Christianity, I want to sort of drop that thread in a little way and talk about something else, which I'd mentioned at one time early on, and this is the fact that in outer Christian religions they have a certain idea of God, and I want to sort of work with that. Of course, that's a natural segue from the fact that we're thinkers and the importance of thinking for you as an individual and what you're going to think. And so at a certain point I want you to try, maybe perhaps, if you want to, of course, obviously, I'm just suggesting it might be very useful for you to think about whether or not the ideas that you have about God that you've been given by outer religions, especially if you're a person who says I'm spiritual, not religious, whether that idea, that God idea, is really up to snuff, you might say. We have, in fact, in the activity of the new atheists, we have a confrontation. They basically say, how can you have this idea of God? This idea of God is horrible. This is a ridiculous idea of God. It doesn't comport with anything that we find even in material reality, much less if we were to bother to try to think there might be a spiritual reality. I mean, they just, the new atheists with justification can't find any rationality in the idea of God. Well, let's imagine the possibility that the problem is not that there is no God, but that the idea of God is so poorly developed at this point in time that it really doesn't adequately find a way to relate to what the natural scientist discovers when he investigates the world. Let's imagine the counter possibility, which I talked about earlier as the other Christianity, the counter possibility that one might be able to have an idea of God that includes natural science, does not exclude it, and that in fact it could be an idea of God that is going to be more useful to us in the future. Now let's pick up another little thread here to add that in, to remind ourselves that in the Hopi oral history, they talk about meeting the Creator. And in a previous little talk, I talked about meeting the Creator. And I'm suggesting to you that it's possible for you to meet the Creator. And that what the True White Brother teachings are about is about developing in ourselves a capacity to meet the Creator. And of course, some people might say, oh, wow, that's interesting, but God, that's got to be very, very hard. How the heck do I meet the Creator? Well, the interesting thing is that when you work with the idea of God, and when you start to work with your own moral impulses, and when you understand what I've been calling the Christ impulse in yourself, when you start to recognize those things, you're beginning to meet the Creator. You'll remember I talked earlier about, well, actually this was in my political blogs. I talked about what I called distributed wisdom. Or maybe it was here. Anyway, let's bring forward the idea of distributed wisdom, and that's that the wisdom isn't lodged in a book like the Bible, and that's where the most wisdom is, or the Vedas, or whatever you want to look to. It's not lodged in Sufi teaching tales. It's not lodged in all these different places. We swim in a sea of wisdom that's around us. Our biographies are suffused with wisdom. We adopt from other people and out of the life experience that we have, whether we read books or not. We adopt pieces of wisdom. We understand, for example, the idea what goes around comes around. If you live an existence, which is an urban existence, in tough areas of life in which there are a lot of people, you may have actually seen this as part of what you see in the world. You see through your own empirical observations of reality, of the qualitative aspects of reality, that what goes around comes around. You know, you've had experiences in yourself. You've been and you've done things, and the next thing you knew, that same thing got done to you. And you look at some other people's lives and you see them doing things, and sometimes these are crappy things, and the same thing happens. It gets done to them. What goes around comes around. It's sort of an inversion of do unto others what you would have them do unto you. Now, do unto others what you would have them do unto you is sort of the law of what goes around comes around, stated in a more proactive fashion. You know, if what goes around comes around, then maybe it's a good reason to go out there and do good things. Maybe some good things will come around to you if you do good things. All right, so with that in mind and a few things about thinking, let's talk about the God idea. What's our idea of God? Well, boy, we have a lot of really poor ideas of God as far as I'm concerned. Now, historically, they're justified. You know, but a God that is able to sort of include within itself the problems we have when we think about evil and suffering in the world, and a God that would include itself even the atheism of the new atheists and isn't going to be bothered by that. A God of real love in a practical sense, not in a sort of theoretical, emotive, too much sympathy sense, but a God of real love in the sense that this God says to us, yeah, you're really cool, I like you, and I think you're important, and I think you're just as important as anybody else. And I'll show you that in your biography if you'll wake up and pay attention to it, because I'm active there. I'm not only active there, but I'm active around you. I'm active everywhere. See, that's what being God lets you mean. The Creator is active everywhere, including inside us. Now, some people in the New Age call this co-creation. They recognize that we co-create with the Creator, and that comes with our freedom. So if you think about these things, you realize, let's just take a little simple thing. In your house you have a knife. You can take that knife and you can go out in the street and you can stab someone to death with it. You're dead. Or you can take that knife and a case of apples that you buy at the grocery store, and you can go down among the homeless and use that knife to pare apples and hand out free apples to people. It's the same object, a knife. But what gets done with it is up to you to decide. And this is true about everything. If you look at the little details in your life, you'll find that your life is full of opportunities to be and do and make judgments and decide and determine. And what goes around comes around. And in your life, in this way, you will come to experiences of the divine mystery as it manifests not only outside you in the outer world, which if you'll notice a little tag at the end of my speeches, you know, render unto God the mystery within and without. What is God's? More later.